Hello and welcome to your next tutorial in Visual Basic, and today we're going to be discussing how to pass arrays as parameters and multi-dimensional arrays. So one thing I didn't show you last time was, did you know that, for an example, if you're going to be accessing the same array in multiple subroutines or functions in the same class, and if you have constants for them, so you already know what they're going to be, you're going to define them just like here, what you can do is just cut it from here. So I'll just cut this, and then way up here I can paste it outside of all subroutines but still within the class. So then I can get rid of it here, I can get rid of it here as well, and I believe that was all of them. So I click save, I run the application again, colors, there they are. If I want to sort them, now they're alphabetized. If I want to reverse that, if you click sort then reverse, then it actually gives you the reversed alphabetized. So that's really cool. As you can see, it's alphabetized backwards. So there you have it. Now also notice how in our colors click, which just lists them, there's a for each loop, then the sort for each, a for each. Well, why don't we, instead of copying and pasting this in every single subroutine, why don't we just make one subroutine that has this? I mean, why not? So let's figure out how to do that. So under our clear button, let's create, and let's close this clear button, we don't need that anymore. Down here, let's create a subroutine called private sub, and let's call it, I don't know, the loop. You know, I'll call it for each instead. And inside, we'll throw in by val, and what we'll bring in will be that array element. So actually I shouldn't type this out yet because I want to show you. And let's see here, and we want the for each loop to go in there. So I'll cut this, and then I'll paste our little loop right here into our little subroutine. But now how do we access that subroutine from another subroutine? Well, we have to call that function, right? So let's type in the name of the function for each. And then within the parameters, we have to type in the name of the array. So I'll type in colors, just like that. And then we need a corresponding variable right here. So by val, and then whatever you would like to call it. So let's call it, let's just call it, what should we call it? I'll just call it colors array. Did I do that? Yeah. No, I already did that. I'll just call it X. Throw in there like that as string. So there we go. So now we're calling in X just like this. And now, since that's now the name of the array, we can't say in colors. Well, we could, because it's up here, but let's just call it in X instead. So that's something you should bear in mind, is if you can't have this up here, then you'll need it down here then. So, but then you'll have colors down here, and well, anyways. So now in X, and let's just copy this, copy, and paste, and then paste. So I click save. Let's run this application and see how it works. Whoops! Whoa! Oh dear. And colors still works. You can still sort them, and you can still reverse them. So that's really cool. And throw in more if you want. Sort all of them. Okay, so that's really cool. So that's how you pass them in. So in this example, you could still have used colors because it can be seen everywhere. But let's say you only defined, just so you know, if you only defined this array within this subroutine, but it was the for each loop that you wanted to keep separate, just so it's only printed once. Because let's say we had a bunch of different types of arrays, but we wanted them all to use the for each loop. Well, then you just define each of those arrays in these individual subroutines, and then use the for each loop in this one subroutine by passing in whichever array you want, and we call it in X because we just called it X up here. And yeah, that's about it for this tutorial. Or excuse me, that's all for arrays as parameters. Now the next thing I want to talk to you about are multi-dimensional arrays. Now how does that work? Well, let's look at this little poorly designed picture I made in Microsoft Paint. Before, we've been working with single-dimensional arrays. So basically, we would call this one colors. We would call it red, orange, yellow, green, all these different things we would put in there. So that'd be element 1, or excuse me, the index 1, index 2, index 3, and index 4. So we have 4 elements here that go from 0 to 3. Well, we could also make multidimensional. So with colors, well, of course we just put in colors, right? But what if we wanted to give attributes to each of them, for an example? So down here, what if we want to create a multidimensional array that uses both the x and the y axis, if you were to picture it, and we would want to call that array species. So the first one we'd call would be humans, so that'd be 0, 0. Then element 0, 1, we'd make it whatever size they have. 0, 2 would be the primate. Then 0, 3, they're a sentient creature. And so basically the x number, so I actually have these wrong. I have the numbers switched for x and y, but you don't have to worry about that. Just picture this and you'll be fine. But all the x's are zeros, so that will pretty much tell us that we'll always be referring to some sort of attribute with the humans. And these two races are actually fantasy from the Halo universe. But the grunts, every time we have a 1, we'll be referring to the grunts, and the elites will always be 2. So let's learn how to access these. Well, first of all, we have to create it too. Okay, so first of all, let's create 3 buttons for each species. So we got a button right here, and I'll copy and paste. And we'll call this one the humans. And down here we would call them humans. Then for this one we'll call them the grunts. BTN grunts. And for the last one we'll call those guys the elites. Okay, so first going into our humans, let's see, by clicking this, let's see if we can create a message box that'll show us each thing. So double click humans, and the first thing we need to do is, you know what, we should actually create a subroutine just like we did here to access all those different elements basically. So first what we'll want to do is create a private sub here. And let's call it species. And we'll want to pass in some information in here as well. And we want to have message box dot show. And then what will come up is the information. So humans would come first, and we actually need to create our information first. So that's just going to be a little error for now. So in here, we're going to want to create our multi-dimensional array. So type in dim species with our parentheses here as string. And then right here, we'll want to type in our highest sub. So 2, 3 is our highest right here. So I'll type in 2, 3. So now that's both of them. And just to save on time, there's no way am I going to write out all this information. So I have a little text document here. Here it is, in which now I can just easily copy and paste all this. Copy and paste. There we go. So all that information is now there. And well, if we go humans first, let's create a variable, or you know what? Let's call this. So I'll go by val x as integer. And then down here, I'll type in species, and then I'll type in what number we want to put in. So if we're doing humans, notice how all the human elements have 0 next to them. So I want to pass in 0, the number 0 basically. And so the number 0 will be passed in here, and then what we can do for messagebox.show is we can print species, And then in there, type in whatever this number x here, because that x will be 0. So x, and then the first one 0, and plus a string plus species x, whatever variable goes in there, 1 plus that plus species and x2, and then another empty string plus species x3. So that should print everything, and then after that put a comma. You know what, we should go enter. So species info and message box buttons dot OK. So there we go. So now we have our humans button. For the grunts, we type in species 1. I believe that will work. And then for the elites, species 2. And hopefully this will work. This is another one that I did not plan ahead. There we go. So I typed humans, and it accessed all the human elements. Human, average sized, a primate, they're sentient. The grunts, short, they're an anthropod, they're sentient. And the elites are tall, the reptilian, and they're sentient as well. So that is really, really cool. I really, really like working with two-dimensional arrays. And yeah, so we only had to create this instance here once. We didn't have to copy and paste this everywhere. And it's private within this one thing, so they can't be accessed anywhere else. And yeah, so basically what happens is this number we put there will be passed in as x here, and then once the message box shows pops up, whatever you typed in there will replace that number. So all the zeros are all the humans. So and then we had 0, 1, 2, 3 for the y-axis, and then so on. And just so you know, I believe you can have up to 32 dimensions, believe it or not. How that works, I have no idea. But anyway, so yeah, so we just have an x-axis if you were to picture it for a one-dimensional array, an x and a y for two-dimensional. A three-dimensional array would look like a cube, so you have an x, y, and z axis, and then so on. So yeah, if this, I'm actually curious if you've ever used a three-dimensional array or more, whether it be homework or if we're a company that you work for. Please leave a comment. I'd be very interested in reading that, and I'm sure other people would too. I mean, wow, 3 or more dimensions. Jeez. Other than that, yeah, I hope this tutorial was helpful for you, and I'll see you next time.